All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 12. That is right, week number 12 of your 9407 class, which is your intellectual freedom and its discontents class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin. And today's check-in video for this week is going to be a little shorter because, quite frankly, I don't have a whole heck of a lot that I want to discuss. But what I do want to, I am going to give a state of the course update, but this time around I am going to probably take a bit of a unusual stance on an issue that is contentious right now that I frankly wonder if discussion is actually helpful in this situation, at least discussion among us here as Americans, which we do have to discuss it because it is something that affects the United States, because it's something that affects the entire world. But at the same time, I'm wondering, okay, when are the discussions productive and when are they not? So let's go ahead and first do that state of the course update. First of all, I do want you all to know that you do have your advocacy letter assignment coming due. That will be due on November the 17th. So that is going to be a week from Friday. And I actually want you all to be aware specifically of that being due on a Friday. But there's going to be a grace period. So here's how that's going to go. Let me explain this. All right, the advocacy letter assignment is going to be due on Friday, November the 17th, because the fall break for Thanksgiving, or Thanksgiving break, starts on Saturday, November the 18th. However, there is a grace period. If you turn that advocacy letter in on Saturday or Sunday, or really any time during that week, honestly, if you just turn it in during the Thanksgiving break, I will not count off. You will have that entire week for the grace period, okay? But the thing is, I cannot make the assignment due when school is not in session. So let me explain my madness a little bit. I cannot make it due when school is not in session, so I cannot make it due when we're on break, so I can't make it due on Sunday the 19th because we'll be on break at that time. So I have to make it due on Friday the 17th. However, I also know that if I make the due date, and this is from past experiences, this is going to sound silly to some of you, but if you haven't dealt with teaching evaluations, and I have for many years now, if you haven't dealt with teaching evaluations, then you don't know how silly some things can get, okay? And that's not necessarily a Mizzou thing, by the way. Like, I've had teaching evaluations in previous jobs in previous places, all right? But what I'm going to say with that is, excuse me, hold on for a minute. I know that if I make the assignment due after Thanksgiving break, then there are going to be people who wait until Thanksgiving break to do it, and then they're going to complain that they had something due as soon as they came back from Thanksgiving break. That's how it works. And again, I know it sounds silly, but that's exactly how it happens. My teaching evaluations actually are better if I make assignments due prior to a break than if I make them due the Monday after the break has ended. In other words, the break ends on Sunday and class resumes on Monday. If I make it due on Monday, people are going to complain and say that they had something that was due as soon as they came back from break, when they really could have just done it before break anyway and just turned it in early. But that's how students work, and so that's what I have to do. I have to make the assignment due prior to you all leaving. So I do want you all to be aware of what's going on there, and if you choose to watch this check-in video, now you are aware. But just know that that assignment is coming up. Also know that our debate is going to be on November the 28th. We have a great slate of debaters, and I think that they are going to do an excellent job. I am going to be sharing debate protocols for the audience a little later on in the, well, probably like a week in advance or something like that, okay? So those will be coming, but they're not coming yet. All right, and that is pretty much all I wanted to say about state of the course updates. That's pretty much all we need right now. If you do have any questions, feel free, or concerns, or what have you, feel free to just email me, or, well, message me on Canvas, or email me if you need to, and we will get everything kind of straightened out. Aside from that, I do want to go into my soapboxing now. I'll probably spend about 5 minutes doing this because there's not a whole heck of a lot that I need to say, and really, it would just be rambling if I spend more than 5 minutes talking about it. So what I'm going to talk about, and you probably already saw this coming, what I'm going to talk about is the Israel-Hamas war and the conflict in Gaza and what's going on with the Palestinians and the Israelis. Here's what I want to say about this. Yes, intellectual freedom does, I think that intellectual freedom does give us our rights to, or our privileges, maybe I should say, to discuss things as we want to, how we want to, and just talk about what's on our hearts. You know, talk about things the way we see them, do research that we feel will make things better in ways that we think the world could be improved, so forth and so on. All of that falls into intellectual freedom. It gets into a big, 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 big thing, okay? There are very, very, very few issues that I will not talk about publicly. I will talk about most issues publicly on my social media, or if I'm invited to speak somewhere, I'll talk about them if somebody wants to hear my opinion on something. Yeah, I'll give it. I don't know why you would want it unless it's something about libraries or something like that. But yeah, if you, for instance, if somebody came to me and was like, hey, we want to invite you to be on this panel about, I don't know, crime in Kansas City or something. I'm not an expert on that, but hey, I'll be on the panel. But if there's one thing that I don't discuss publicly, it's Israel and Palestine and Hamas and Gaza. That entire situation, okay? And there's a reason for that. And my reason for that is, I don't know, there are a very few select issues that I don't think we ever make progress on when we talk about them. And unfortunately, here in America, and unfortunately, I think that Israel-Palestine is one of those situations, okay? So, yeah, I'll say this. Like, I have discussed a lot of other contentious topics on my social media or on panels or in discussions with people at conferences and so forth and so on. That includes policing in the library. That includes police brutality. That includes racism. That includes, yes, it includes gender identity issues. It includes sexual orientation issues, the whole nine yards. But what I'll say is the reason I am willing to talk about those things is because you can kind of at times make headway on those issues. People, a lot of times people have their minds made up, but then I think that one of the points of having actual discussion is to explore the strengths and weaknesses of the positions we hold, as well as the strengths and weaknesses of positions that other people hold. And hopefully become enlightened, get to some sort of understanding maybe. Some common ground is good. It's not always achievable, but a lot of times common ground can be very, very good. But I think basically discussion should result in growth. When I look at Israel and Palestine, and when I watch people in the United States talk about it, quite frankly, it seems like everybody's mind is made up already, and that everybody's mind is made up on very, very incomplete information and very limited perspective, but they are going to charge in and be what they are. Pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, whatever the case may be. It just seems like people have their minds made up, and no matter what you do, they're going to continue thinking the way they think. And so really, when you're in situations like that, in my opinion, and you're free to disagree, and you can disagree in the fun stuff or all-inclusive area of the course, but I think that when you try to discuss things where people have their minds made up, and they have their minds made up on limited information and limited perspective, really all you're doing is barking at each other, getting each other emotional, and not experiencing growth, just experiencing anger and being upset and never reconciling those feelings, okay? I just don't think, I've never seen, I'll just say, put it this way, I've never seen a productive discussion between Americans on the Israel-Palestine conflict. I've never seen it. They'll bark at each other, they'll get mad at each other, they'll get very passionate about it, but I have never ever seen anything productive when Americans discuss this issue. Now, I am specifically talking about Americans. So I actually train in martial arts with people. Okay, I am going to go a little bit over 10 minutes. I apologize, but speed this up. It won't be too much longer, over 10 minutes. I train in martial arts with, for one person who was a former member of Israeli Special Forces. But I train with people from all over the world who come to, who end up in Kansas City and train at my martial arts academy. And what I would say about that is there can be productive discussions when people have more perspective and when they have that international perspective and they've actually seen things and they've been to the Middle East or they've seen the devastation of this type of thing within their own nations, their own home nations. Okay. So I'm not clowning just everyone who discusses Israel Palestine. I think that a lot of people who are in the Middle East, for instance, probably should be discussing it because, hey, it's something that is very much affecting their safety and the safety of their friends and family and the economies and the whole 9 yards over there. Okay, I see, I see a potential for growth when people who have more than the limited, I think, American perspective are actually dialoguing and discussing things with one another. And so I do think that those discussions can probably occur probably a lot more readily closer to the conflict. But here in the United States, we just have people who are, okay, I'm pro-Israel because, I'm a Christian and I believe that the people, that God's chosen people should have Israel to be safe. They're one place to be safe. Or I'm pro-Palestine because the Palestinian occupation is similar to colonization of European powers, and I speak against that, so I speak against what's going on with Israel and Palestine. You have these kind of conflicting things going on in America, but I don't think people really have full perspective here. I think that they are getting very belligerent over very limited perspective, and I don't think that is productive. Those people should still have their intellectual freedom, but why direct your intellectual freedom into an issue where everyone's mind seems to already be made up? I don't know. I don't know if those discussions can actually be productive. Maybe you do know. If so, tell me. Anyway, that's all I have. So yeah, even we are going to talk about Holocaust denial in one of the future modules. And so I want us to be kind of, as we do that, you have intellectual freedom, so you can talk about whatever you want to talk about in this class. But I do want us to maybe use a little bit of restraint when we talk about Holocaust denial in how we approach, when we're talking about that. It may be a good idea. I'm not saying you have to do this, but it may be a good idea for you to divorce Holocaust denial from what's going on in Gaza currently. Okay, because when I think about Holocaust denial, I'm thinking about Jews versus more so Nazis who are Christians, as opposed to, I do know that there are Muslims who are Holocaust deniers as well, but I frame Holocaust denial more so as something that takes place with white supremacist Christians. And not all Christians are white supremacists. That's not what I've said. But I'm just saying the Nazis are Christians who are also white supremacists. Okay. So yeah, maybe I should just leave it right there. Yeah, let's just be very careful on that. I don't want people in this class to get stirred up on issues related to Gaza and Palestine and Hamas and Israel. So yeah, I'm going to leave it right there. I am Dr. Jace, and unfortunately, there are people in that region that other people are trying to erase, and that's not good. But I hope for better days. All right, you all take care.